Oh. Hey there, everybody. What is going on? So let me check something, make sure I'm in the right direction. You know me, I'm always trying to try something different. Yes, so I'm on a different device, so I wanted to kind of try something different. So, hey there. How are you? Thank you for watching. I am not going to be before you long because I just have a couple of things that I want to share. So as many of you who are, I won't say following, I'll say scrolling and happen to catch some of my information, first of all, you know that I have a podcast. And so just in case this video gets shared, there's no form or fashion to this. I am Suzanne Stroud. I am a author, motivational speaker, facilitator, accountability coach. Like, I do a whole lot of little bit of stuff, but it all kind of ties into life, accountability, and perspective. And recently I launched a podcast. It's called The Life Diet 365 with Suzanne Stroud, and it's actually a spin off of a book that I wrote 4 or 5 years ago called The Life Diet 365. Life Diet 365. Hey, sunshine. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of you. Because I think a lot of times somehow we get all tied up and tangled up in the things of life, and then we don't live life. And I had recently, watched the program. There's this program that I love to watch, and it's about helping people find their birth families or their children that they gave up for adoption. And I found that over the years, with me telling people my story, first of all, they're always saying, hey, that you should write a book. And I'm like, I think I started a book years ago, but I'm just trying to wait for the right time. Because it is a great story. It really is a great story. And so I thought that I would start with my podcast. So over the next couple of weeks, I'm not sure if it's going to be 3 weeks, but I know it's definitely going to be 2 weeks, where I'm going to talk about my experience. And so this video, the purpose of this video is just to kind of put a face behind the introduction or what's going to take place on the podcast. And so before I get started with my story, I want you to be ready to share this with people who that have been adopted, or maybe you yourself have been adopted, and your story may have been great like mine, or may not have been great. The reason why I want to do this is because for some reason, even in this late in our age, some people still have a stigma behind being adopted, or even if you're the person who had to put someone up for adoption. And I'm going to share my journey and how I found out, but I'll give you a tip. A sneak peek. I didn't find out until I was 26 that I was adopted, and it really threw me for a loop. Like, when I tell y'all it threw me for a loop, I was like, oh my God, like, I'm like almost halfway through my life and then I get something like this. But let me share some information with you that I found, because I wanted to know how many adoptions there were in the 60s. And so I found this information. It says, during the decade before Roe versus Wade legalized abortion across the U.S., before the pill was fully mainstream, and before societal stigma for single mothers greatly diminished, adoption rates were unsurprisingly much higher. The number of adoptions rose from 91,000 in 1957 to 175,000 in 1970, then fell to 130,000 by 1975. And so I looked up, excuse me, I'm sorry about that, some information that said between 1945 and 1973, it's estimated that 4 million parents placed children up for adoption, with 2 million being during the 60s alone. And so as I meet people that are close in my age, I'm finding that many of them were adopted. And there's this emotional roller coaster that I think only people in my shoes can explain, or you can understand. You can only understand. But I think for me, and I'm going to say this because I definitely want to make sure I say this here and also say it in my podcast, that when I did find out that I was adopted, I think I was more upset with my adopted parents for not telling me for so long than I was with my mother and father putting me up for adoption. And it did take me a while to get through that. I would probably say I was in a haze or a daze for almost a year. Like, it really, really threw me, because I was like, are you kidding me? I'm just finding this out, and I've already moved out of the state, so it's going to make it more difficult for me to find the information. And so, it was that. And then I did say one thing. I know when I did decide, because it took me a minute to decide whether I was going to search for my birth parents, I was only concerned about my health history. And because I understood that at 26 years old, I would understand that this person has a life of their own. Not sure how their family would have felt. But my mom was okay with it. My dad had already passed, and that was how we ended up finding out. I'll share all that. And so I wanted my health history. So I wasn't really hung up on a connection. And I'm getting ready to share with you why. So I'm going to share some information. So, and let me see here. So then there was someone, so I'm going to share someone's story. It says, I was placed in a lower middle class family that did not give me the option of attending college. Wait a minute, this was the wrong one. Wow, this is the right story I want to pull, but this one here, here it is. I still wonder if I should try to find my birth mother, but there is an irrational fear that I will be rejected again if she does not want to hear from me. Intellectually, I know that she is the victim here, and she had no choice but to give me up in a time when single mothers were ostracized. After 53 years, clearly she had a full life without me and may not have ever told anyone about me. There are many stories of an adoptee placed in that phone call only to have the line go dead when they announce who they are. And right where it says there's this irrational fear that they will be rejected again, that is so common among adoptees, because they don't want to be rejected again. Because in our minds, the only story that we have is someone placed us up for adoption. And if you don't have the opportunity to find out the reason, the only story that you know is that you were rejected, or that someone didn't want you. And I think in my mind, I asked that question, but then being a reasonable person, and some of you probably say, really? But being a reasonable person, I thought, there had to be a really good reason. And I held on to that. But then I said, I'm not going to hold out for a relationship because, I'm a full-grown adult married with children, and this person may have had their life. And so I didn't hold out for that. And so I can understand why this person and many other people like us would say that the irrational fear of being rejected again, or being hung up on, or letters being returned, or no response at all. And so one of the reasons why I want to do this podcast is because I want to be able to share my story and hopefully find a way to connect with people who are like me, and even in my age group, who are still having a tough time with it, whether they've located their birth parents, and they don't have a great relationship, or they're still trying to find them, because there is that lack of closure. There is this, I still need to find out all of who I am. And that is a difficult place to be. So if you know someone, or if you know someone who has been adopted and they don't feel like they have any closure, it's really not a get over it kind of thing. It is one of those things where you just have to be patient with the person until they decide to let it go, until they decide to move on. Because, every day, they're looking at someone or connecting with people who have their natural parents. And then they still do the comparison, wow, that I don't have my parent, I don't know my parent, or this happened to me and that happened to me. So there is that level of disconnect and that level of hurt and confusion. Hey there, there's that level of hurt and confusion, that people just don't understand from a person who's been adopted, what they still go through. But I think that when I made the decision to do the search, I had resolved within myself that this was all I wanted. If nothing else came from it, that's what's going to be okay. Because now I was like, I felt like I've been lying to my doctors because they were asking me, do you have a history of this or history of that? And I was like, no, I got a clean bill of health. And now when I found that out, I'm just like, oh my God, what do I have? Like, do I have anything? So that was the urgency for me. And I'm going to save all the great details for the podcast. And I will probably come back and do a video after the podcast so that, you know, folks that may have watched it may have some questions. It's easier to dialogue when you're face to face with someone. But I will tell you that another thing I will tell you is that I grew up with 2 other siblings in my home, and all 3 of us were adopted, and we were all adopted from different families. And the whole mystery of it all is we were all in our 20s when we found this out, and everyone in our family knew. Cousins, uncles, grandparents, everybody knew that we were adopted, and no one ever spilled the beans. Talk about some gangster stuff. What kind of threat that somebody put on somebody. But I had a loving adoptive family. I had a very loving parents. And there's just some things that people in our position who are adoptees, you know, that you have to let go. That you have to let go, especially when you get in your 50s. Like, I just don't understand, you know, why someone would want to torment themselves at this late in their age. You have to tell yourself that this was the best decision that this person or these people could have made at that time. And you just have to just rest in that. There's no other explanation. There's no magic pill. There's no therapeutic regimen or prognosis. You just have to resolve within yourself that this happened because that was the best decision that someone felt that they could make at that time. So I am looking forward to the podcast. I'm trying to get all of my thoughts together because it's going to be a little different than the other podcast because, you know, I can kind of spill all that stuff out. But it's just going to be a conversation for the listener, because everyone has someone in their family, in their close relationships, you know, associates, someone that has been adopted. And if you have been adopted and you've never shared it, the question is why? You know, is there a shame or a stigma behind that? And I can ask that question because I felt that way too. I was like, I don't want to tell nobody that. But then I had to ask myself, why? That's just so dumb. Why am I ashamed of that? That's not something I did, but you know, I'm just going to live in it. And then it just became a conversation. And then wait till I tell you some of the stories. Oh my God. It's just amazing how synchronization in life really works. And there was so much synchronization in my life behind my adoption. And when I started finding people and meeting people, hey there, congratulations, sir, on your promotion. And when I started meeting people, I think the toughest thing for me to do, it's just so funny because one of my classmates just came on. The toughest thing for me to do was to go back and share with my classmates that I was still close to at that time, to tell them that, because we all kind of grew up together. You know, high school is close to college life if you don't go to college. You know, those are people that you bond with, you connect with, and I felt like my classmates were my family, and I said, well, oh my God, how do I tell them, and what are they gonna think of me? There's all these little crazy thoughts that go through your mind, but I'm excited about sharing this on my podcast. The first episode is going to release next Tuesday, the 5th. I have new episodes that release every Tuesday on the Life Diet 365 podcast, and I just finished talking about detox, like self-detox and self-care, and I've been watching to see the trend of subscribership, if that's a real word, and everyone loves the one detox, you know, how you got to detox yourself from yourself in order to get on in life. But I'm excited to share this story, and I am excited that my birth mother is excited about it. She heard about it, she called me. I was like, oh my God, you're not even on social media. But yeah, so that is the Life Diet 365 podcast. You can catch it. If you have Apple, it's on Apple Podcasts, Google. There's a app that you can download, or it's a podcast app that you can download. Actually, it's called Podcast Player, and you can just play it from there. Spotify, iHeartRadio, so you can check it out there. So thank you for taking the time to watch this intro to the intro, or intro after the intro, about this story. So I'm excited to be able to share this with you all. Like, I almost really want to do it Facebook Live, but I need to do it on my podcast to kind of build that. So look forward to hanging out with you guys, and be sure to share this video and share about the podcast and help it to grow. So thank you so much for watching. You guys take care. Have a great day. Bye-bye.